Considering the levels of organization that are relevant to the human body, we want to start with the chemical level of organization, which would be the lowest or simplest level from which everything else is composed. Now, we want to start considering molecules. As we've been building up through the chemical level of organization from atoms, we've seen how they bond together, and now we want to consider these structures that are going to be active as multiple atoms together, what we call molecules. The most important molecule that we're going to be dealing with throughout this course is water, so we want to talk about that in a bit more detail.
Life, as we know it, would not exist without water. Over 70% of the planet is covered in water, and our bodies are around 70% water. But why is water so important? The structure of a water molecule and the fact that it is capable of forming hydrogen bonds with multiple other water molecules simultaneously provides water molecules with some very unique characteristics. These include the ability to act as a universal solvent, the properties of cohesion and adhesion, a high surface tension, a high heat capacity, and changes in density based on temperature. Let's take a look at each of these in turn. Water is often called the universal solvent, which means that many substances dissolve in it. Water's solvency has to do with the polarity and hydrogen bonding ability of water molecules. When a salt, such as sodium chloride, is placed in water, the negative ends of the water molecules are attracted to the positively charged sodium ions, and the positive ends of the water molecules are attracted to the negatively charged chloride ions. This attraction causes the sodium and chloride ions to break up or dissociate in water. Why is this important? Since our cells are mostly water, these solutions of ions and molecules allow chemical reactions to occur much more frequently, which is an important feature to allow organisms to respond to their environment. Water molecules are also cohesive and adhesive. The hydrogen bonds in water cause water molecules to stick together, a property known as cohesion. Polar bonds also give molecules an adhesive property, or the ability to cling to other polar surfaces. Why is this important? Well, water fills the internal transport systems of plants and animals. Because of these cohesive and adhesive properties, water allows for the efficient transport of nutrients and waste within an organism. Water also has a high level of surface tension. Because water molecules at the surface are more strongly attracted to each other than to the air above, water molecules cling tightly to each other. The surface tension of water explains why it beads up on waxy surfaces and why water-striding insects are able to walk on the surface of water. Water has a high capacity for heat. What this means is that the many hydrogen bonds that link water molecules let water absorb a large amount of heat without changing its chemical state, for example, from liquid to gas. This not only stabilizes the temperature of bodies of water, such as lakes and oceans, but also plays an important role in the physiology of an organism. Since life is based on water, and the temperature of water rises and falls slowly, living organisms are better able to maintain their normal internal temperatures and are protected from rapid temperature changes. And finally, the density of water is based on its temperature. However, unlike many other compounds which contract when they freeze, the configuration of the hydrogen bonds in water causes it to expand when it freezes. This expansion causes ice to have a lower density than liquid water, and therefore ice floats on liquid water. If ice were more dense than water, it would sink, and ponds and lakes would freeze solid, making life there impossible. Instead, bodies of water always freeze from the top down. The ice on the surface acts as an insulator to protect the water below from freezing. This protects aquatic organisms so that they can survive the winter.
just to write them down, these are the major properties of water that were discussed in that video and are going to be important for how water plays a part in the physiology of the course that we're describing. One of the more common expressions of the properties of water that we're going to deal with, which is really an extension of its universal solubility, is how certain substances affect the solution that they're dissolved in. And we're going to consider pH. Now, pH is really a scale looking at the concentration of hydrogen ions in solution. The scale is from 0 to 14 or 1 to 14, depending on how you want to describe it, with that number representing the negative exponent of the concentration factor of hydrogen ions in water. A low pH corresponds to a high concentration of hydrogen ions, which is why low pH is acidic, meaning that there's a high concentration of hydrogen ions. And a high number when there's a low concentration of hydrogen ions is because the solution is basic. It might be easier to visualize the idea of pH, or the concentration of hydrogen ions, in this way. Now, neutral pH is pure water. Water, H2O, can also be thought of as a solution of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions in water. Hydrogen ions are a positively charged hydrogen atom. Hydroxide ions are an oxygen and hydrogen bound together with a negative charge. That's really describing the water molecule. If you take just the proton of one of the hydrogens off of a water molecule, then you'll have the hydrogen ion separate from the rest of the water molecule. You're not taking an electron with that hydrogen ion, so the electron stays with the water molecule. So the hydrogen ion, just a proton, is a positively charged ion. The water molecule, keeping the electron from the hydrogen that's been removed, has a negative charge to it. And so a neutral pH of 7 would be when there's a balance between those two things. There'd be an equal number of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions. An acidic solution is when there's more hydrogen ions in the water. A basic solution is when there's more hydroxide ions in the water. Bases might not necessarily have hydroxide ions that they're giving off into solution, but they will remove sometimes the hydrogen ions from the water, making the water have effectively more hydroxide ions in them. Consider this question. When you feel that you've reached an answer, hit the next button to go into the next slide, which will reveal the correct answer.